this connects all of the things, Druid, drag, neurodivergence, realizing that there are seasons, like seasons of rest and high energy and in-betweens, being able to listen to your spirit and body and rest when you need to or set boundaries or limits.
Content warnings for this episode include dysphoria, religious trauma, and mental health. Genderful would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples and unceded lands that the producers, hosts, and guests have lived and have dwelt upon. Today, we honor the Coast Salish,
Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapahoe.
We honor the elders, the human, plant, and animal ancestors of these lands, and celebrate the living descendants of these peoples. May all beings tend these lands for the goodness of the next 7 generations and beyond. Meowdy folks, welcome to Genderful, a talk show interviewing gender-diverse folks about their special interests.
The name of our show celebrates that gender expansiveness is wonderful.
Hi, I'm GenderMeowster, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Atlas of Phoenix, and my pronouns are also they, them. The focus of our show is to interview trans, non-binary, agender, and gender-diverse people regarding their special interests, passion projects, and resources for the gender-diverse community.
We want our audience to know that this show is hosted by 2 folks who also identify as non-binary, transmasculine, neurodivergent, and disabled, with the passion for telling trans stories.
We invite you to remember that we are whole people with robust lives, friendships, challenges, and successes. We love and are loved, and we are delighted to share these stories with you.
As always, we kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of their identities. Your identities can change over time and are valid every step of the way. And if you think you're gender diverse, you are gender diverse. There are no social or medical prerequisites to be included in the community. Everyone, welcome to Genderful episode 97. This week, our guest Reanna, also known as Prince Zaddy, they, them pronouns, is chatting with us about the interconnectedness of Druidry, drag, and neurodivergence. We ran across this wonderful person while browsing Instagram a while back, and we're very excited to have them with us today. Welcome to Genderful, Reanna.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. I've been enjoying your picture with your druid drag art for several weeks because we made those a long time ago. And so I'm like, oh, yay, we finally get to talk. I'm excited.
I actually did that look. That was my first drag look after top surgery. So it was very special for me.
That's so amazing. I love that for you. That's wonderful. So we have a couple gender history questions we like to ask all of our guests, just because it's fun for our gender diverse and trans and non-binary listeners to sort of give them a path. Like, how did we get where we are today? So what are some things that you can trace back to your youth that indicated you might be gender diverse one day?
I mean, I was a dance kid, and I feel like there are so many drag people who are trans who are dance kids because that was definitely a performance of femininity, I guess, that felt more queer. Like you're just playing up femininity, like drag, like very extra, the hair, the makeup, everything. And that's honestly how I got into drag, was because I wanted to dance again. And I feel like there's, we don't always associate dance studios and pageants with queer kids, but how is it not queer and extra?
Yeah.
I was definitely more of a tomboy at the same time, and definitely that kid who was the teacher said, oh, I need some boys to pick up these chairs. I was ready to go, 5th grade, rubbing it in everyone's face that I had the most pull-ups, all that kind of stuff. I was very much that kid.
I love that. That's so fun. So clearly something has happened between then and now, because you're now a gender diverse adult. How has your relationship to gender evolved over time?
I mean, it always, for a lot of us, starts with sexuality and moves into, oh no, now there's gender. And that's kind of how it was for me. I grew up in such a small, boring town, and moving to go to college, a really big state university, and just seeing how many different types of people there are around, and that I could look like them, I could be with someone like that and not just a boring cishet man. Because before that, I didn't think about myself as anything other than what we call like the default, just because you're receiving all this heteronormative and cisnormative input throughout your life. So yeah, just seeing how different people could be in college really opened my eyes, and I came out as pan, and then that changed to, oh, I'm like a butch lesbian, and then, oh no, I'm using any and all pronouns, but they them feels right. And then I started to use they them pronouns out of spite. In like my internship, I was facing a lot of pushback, I guess, and I was using any and all pronouns, and they all just defaulted to she. And so then I was like, nope, we're gonna use they them out of spite, so that you have to use this for me. And then I was like, oh, just kidding, feels right for me all the time. Yeah, so I feel like it's just constantly like opening up more and more layers.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the thing where like we can use phrases like any pronouns, and then people always go for the most cis sounding pronouns consistently. Do you feel like mixed pronouns brings you joy? Like if someone's talking about you and in one sentence they use he, she, and they all in one sentence, perhaps at that time. I don't know if you still use any pronouns. It seems like you're a they, them all the time now. But back then, do you think a mixed pronoun sentence would have been more delightful for you?
I think so. I did notice it was just different in different spaces too, and very few people used like multiple for me. A lot of people, like queer people, default to they, them, and then, like cishet people tend to default to whatever they think is your gender. I think it would have brought me joy, and now like when I'm in drag, I use he, they pronouns, and that brings me a
Nice.
lot of joy, but I don't know that that's what I want all of the time.
Right. Yeah. We have a recurring reminder that happens on the channel that says, what's your gender today? And I feel like sometimes the answer to that is like gremlin. My gender is gremlin today.
My friend recently
My
said
gender is
in my frog and
mischief.
toad era, and I feel like that's
Nice.
a big part of my gender.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. That's so fun. Oh man. Okay, well, let me switch topics and let's talk more specifically about Druidry, drag, and neurodivergence. So, what is Druidry and how did you come into the practice?
So Druidry itself is a Celtic, pagan, and ancient practice. Trees are very sacred to us. Druid can translate to one who knows the tree. So seeking knowledge from trees and nature around us. I really loved how in depth he went with the land acknowledgement, because like it just resonated with my little druid heart, because a big part of the druid faith is seeing every living being as just as important as us humans. So non-human animals, rocks, trees, plants, birds, everything around us, the weather, rivers, all of that is important to us and all connected and affecting each other. Originally, which a lot of the knowledge has been lost due to colonization. A lot of like our written teachings, the ancient ones, were burned. Some personally by St. Patrick. Fun fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm not about celebrating St. Patrick's Day, I'll tell you that.
me neither. It's All Snakes Day to me. I've actually got like a serpent Celtic knot work all over my arm,
That's
which
gorgeous.
is I've read in some places. It's really hard to find like just straight facts because of how much information has been lost, and so I spend a lot of time like, I guess, meditating or like reflecting on myself and how I feel in my druidry, and like knowing that there must have been people like me too. But originally the druids were like very high-ranking people in like Celtic communities, and would serve counsel to important leaders, and would have to take years to learn different disciplines like philosophy and psychology. And today it looks different for every druid, I think. Justice, truth, and equity are all very important to us. Like those are some of the main tenets, and like asking consent from plants before you harvest, or knowing when to stop harvesting, and like being, I guess, in community with every living thing around you. That's a big part of being a druid, I think, today, but I feel like it looks different for a lot of people. For me personally, it's been a way to reconnect with like my culture outside of Christianity. And there's big overlaps with other pagan faiths, like the Wheel of the Year and like different celebrations. And I already said the lost info thing. And how I came to be a druid. I feel like there was just a lot of weird, or like things that just couldn't be coincidence, like different weird events that were like whimsical events that started happening after I moved out to Colorado, and I asked my mom to send me the tarot deck that she had like all my life, like, or longer, and she didn't really use it, but it was always in my childhood home. So I asked her to send that to me, and I started using it, and just a bunch of weird things were happening that led to me like ending up researching ancient Irish culture. Like I'm like half Irish, and just like sobbing my eyes out, like about how like I feel like this piece of me has been found that I didn't even know was there, because I grew up like Irish Catholic, and so there's a lot
Right.
surrounding that. But things like I had come across, I actually met a couple indigenous people randomly in a club, and one of them like braided my hair because I reminded them of somebody who had passed from their tribe, and then somebody else came up to me and recognized the braid and was like, "What tribe are you from?" And I was like, I had told them what happened, and they were like, "Well, what's your heritage?" And then I said that I was Irish, and they were like, "The Irish used to braid their hair too." And so then like that just sent me down like a rabbit hole of research, and as I was researching, my name's Reanna, and my parents kind of based it off Rhiannon, which is a Celtic goddess, and they didn't
Yeah.
realize she's a Celtic goddess. But
She's a really cool one.
yeah, my middle name's Morgan, so Rhiannon Morgan.
That's a
Like,
powerful name.
right? So that's part of the reason I don't want to change it. Like in my transition too, is like being a druid and having these names that just happen to be so perfect for me, I guess. But I had found out that a way to worship her was to put out like a horseshoe on your altar. And like a week before, I had received a horseshoe from this kid I was working with. And it was just such a like weird moment that I happened to, because like I'm in Denver, like I happened to take this kid to an urban farm because he really loves animals and needed like a career um mentor, I guess, or like somebody to visit with that like looked like him.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And we're like collecting eggs, and he gave me a horseshoe because he was so excited to like look through all of them. And then yeah, a week later I'm doing all this, and I had no idea, like, but it really felt like the universe was like, oh yeah, you're gonna take a step out, here we go. Like it just makes me think of that audio that's like, hold my hand, hold my hand. Now we wait.
That's
So
so
yeah,
wonderful.
that's how
I love
that's how
that.
I
I
got
love
into
that so much.
it.
Um, I I wonder, is there a difference for you between Druidry and animism? And if so, what is it? Is animism just a part of Druidry?
I think it is. There's actually like druid stories, plenty of, and other different pagan cultures, I feel like too, about like deities or humans like turning into animal form across the life, or like turning into different animal forms, or even like meditating to become, like I read this story of somebody who like kind of became not really, but like visually, when somebody was looking at them swimming in a river, they like looked like a fish like flowing with the water. um So I do think it's a part of it. I don't know that it's like, I feel like it depends on the druid too, like how much of a role that plays in their practice, I guess. Like I'm very much an herb and plants type of person. Like I really love connecting with trees, and like we've been blessed. My family bought a home, and people who were homesteading here before, like we have so much abundance. So part of my practice is like being out in the garden and harvesting and just like hanging out with the plants. I made a nice like calming tea yesterday with some of the herbs I dried. Um, yeah.
Hmm, I love that. Um, so let's bring in the thread about gender. So how do you see your gender and or transness as connected to being a druid?
My friend actually described me as beyond gender, and that will forever stick with me. I feel like, and I think this is true for a lot of people actually, and may not realize it or do, but don't have the words to put to it. That people will choose a label or pronouns or whatever that is easy to explain to essentially cis people, but I mean other queer people too. Um, like non-binary and gender queer feel fine for me and make sense with what they mean. And at the same time, I feel like there's not a label that can fully encompass how I feel about gender. And I mean, maybe I don't always like, I don't need a label for that, because I mean, maybe some of the people I'm explaining it to, like, if you don't get it, you're not going to get it. But I see my gender as like a mossy river ecosystem. Like I trees, moss, rocks, the river, rain, all of that feels like me, like my essence, I guess. Um, and that's hard to put a label on, but at the same time, like I feel like, you go out in the forest, you're not like, oh yeah, that tree is a he, him, or that tree is a cis woman,
Yeah.
that like the trees just are, they exist, and they're there, and they're beautiful, and they're very vital to all of our survival. Um, and yeah, but yeah, I feel like it's easier to just be like, oh, I'm non-binary, my pronouns are they, them, instead of being like, I am moss. uh, and also after my top surgery, I really tried to take that time as like a spiritual time of coming home to my physical vessel, like my spirit being held in this vessel and feeling more comfortable and at home in it. Um, yeah.
Chad is saying moss gender sounds rad. They
Yes.
also got excited about frogs and toads.
Yes. Also very
And
gender.
and another person said a very powerful name in response to your first and
Aw.
middle names. Um, so Prince Zaddy, how do you feel your autism and ADHD intertwine with the other parts of your identity?
So I actually realized the other day, that I was looking in the mirror, and I could see my kid self again, and
Mm,
in a good way. Like I feel like I could see me, and like not something I'm performing as my gender. Um, and I realized that like when I first started playing with masculinity and with drag too, like playing with masculinity was very like you're playing it up and you're trying to portray a cis man. I don't know, like that's kind of what it felt like to me. And same with my gender, it felt like I was putting on a performance a lot of the times, where I would like look to other drag kings, other butches, trans masc people, masculine non-binary people, and look at like the physical way they were performing, like the way you hold yourself, the clothes you wear, the jewelry, the hair, all of that, and trying to perform it for myself. And I realized the other day that any like success or like not success, anything that's felt right in my transition has been based off of sensory stuff and like how I feel emotionally as well versus how I look physically. And that
Yeah.
has all like culminated over the years into me actually liking what I see in the mirror too, which is surreal. But like things like my hair, like I cut my hair out. I used to have like hair that covered my boobs, like it was really long, and then I cut it off. And then I realized I needed top surgery because I had no cover anymore. And I realized that I didn't like having really short hair. I got really annoyed with how you have to style it every day. I couldn't just throw it up in a ponytail anymore. All of that. That was all like sensory and at the same time spiritual because I feel like there's energy in our hair. And like your hair length, this hair has been with me for however many years or grown over the last few years and holds stories, holds those memories. So it felt, and I love braiding my hair too. So it feels like both spiritual and like a sensory thing in my transition. And same thing with top surgery too. Like I feel like by the time I was getting top surgery, I was like, I really could care less how I look after because the surgeon was like, is it okay if one of your scars is like a little higher than the other? And I was like, as long as they're gone, that's all I care about. And it was all very sensory stuff, like just being like, I had D's before they took 5 pounds off me. So I could feel that any which way I moved my arms, turned, like just every single thing I was doing in my life, I could feel them putting on socks, whatever. And so top surgery was a very big like sensory accomplishment for me. Like I feel so good now in my body. And same thing with like clothing too, like wearing stuff that feels more comfortable to me instead of trying to perform in a way that I think other people will see it as masculine. So now I've like worn skirts and drag, which I wouldn't have done at the beginning of my drag journey. It's made me more comfortable like playing with femininity and whatnot. Because like I was like a hippie skirt person when I was younger and more femme, and so it's nice to like be able to bring that back and still feel just as masculine. And then like fidgets, like accessories as fidgets, like all different stuff, and now I look in the mirror and I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, I love that. So Reanna, my next question is, what does your spiritual practice look like? Do you feel it has helped with your mental health and transition?
I feel like my practice definitely ebbs and flows with, usually depending on my mental health or how motivated I'm feeling or executive dysfunction, etc. But I keep an altar, and which I did as a child unintentionally too. I've always like had it on a shelf, and now I have like many shelves and a little like apothecary shelf and everything. So lots of like crystals and my tools are all in one place, and I keep out offerings for my ancestors and any guide spirit that is, here on my team, I guess. So I lately have been putting out espresso because I like coffee is a big thing in my family. And I really enjoy coffee. I'm also barista too. And so I'll put out espresso and water and money sometimes and like herbs from the garden. Um, Lots of reading and research as well. Some divination. I've really been into poker card readings because I found out on my French side that my great grandma would do poker card readings, tea leaves, and palmistry, which was so surprising to me.
That's very
And
cool. Do you just use a playing card deck for that?
yeah,
That's rad.
right. So, and that's really spoken to me too. The book I found for it goes through each card like it's a character with a story to kind of depict what the meaning is, which I really like. And the author used they and them pronouns for some of their stories, like the characters in their stories. I also enjoy like oracle cards and the weather too, like divination with the weather. I have brought on some small hailstorms or rain like in my small area. My drag mom, who's a witch, like lives nearby, and she's like, "Oh, you good over there?" If it starts just like downpouring in one area. Um, I love spending time in nature and like being present, paying attention to the moon cycles, some astrology, but I'm not as into that as other things. Being mindful of like the different celebrations over the wheel of the year. My partner and I just did a ritual for our anniversary to kind of like set intentions for what we want to see in ourselves and in our partnership over the next year, which was really beautiful. They're more on the like Norse path because that's more of their heritage. Lots of journaling, and I am a painter and stuff too, so I try to see some of my creativity is like intertwined with my druidry and also like helping with my mental health too. When I've painted a lot of murals in the house, and on the front door, well, for one, there's eyeballs staring at people who come up to the door, especially solicitors and, you know, like church. But I think there was like Mormons or something that tried to come and only stopped at our house because we have a pride flag. So I was like, here's some eyeballs to stare at you. And I put like a protective rune underneath the paint before painting over it to kind of like set a blessing or protection over our house. Um, Being in community as part of my practice, and some of the homesteading, like ebbing and flowing with the seasons, and like listening to my body as well as what's going on around me, because we're all part of this. And yeah, like protective work, cleansing, all of that kind of stuff. So here's where a little bit of like religious trauma, I guess, comes up, but I'm not gonna go like real in depth. But leaving Christianity was a really scary and big step for me. It almost made some other things in my life feel smaller because I had always felt like I need to rely on God and, you know, people in the church, and have to uphold this standard so that I can live a good life and all of those things like that. It all comes out, like all of that shame and guilt that is pushed on you over the years and throughout childhood just comes out. And while that should be like a sign to leave, it's, you know, the church and Christian messaging can be very manipulative, or, you know, indoctrination, all of that. So like it feels like a lifeline, almost like I have to rely on God. And like I had a source of community like in the church, and God was my therapy before I started like seeing a counselor, which I should have seen one sooner. And it's just very much like, if I do all the right things, which that's like terrible for your mental health and your spirit. So like it was terrifying, and but finding Druidry has been freeing and has helped me connect with myself and my culture, and kind of do that grieving of like lost culture, lost information, like what type of person would I be if I wasn't raised in the Catholic Church, or if I was raised as a pagan, like that my life would be a lot different. I maybe would have come out as queer sooner. But it almost made transitioning seem smaller, like than if, you know, if I had transitioned when I was younger and still in the church. Whereas instead it was kind of like in parallel almost. I think I started to transition a little bit first, or like dip my toes, I guess, with like using all pronouns, and then shortly after started getting into Druidry. So those have kind of happened in tandem. And weirdly enough, got diagnosed with ADHD later than that. And my counselor is also a pagan too, so it's nice to be able to like share that and like have somebody who understands when I'm in therapy too. But yeah, I didn't feel like I had to like rely on God when I was getting my top surgery and doing scary things for my transition. Like I felt assured by spirit, by nature, by my loved ones and community. And this practice has just like generally expanded my mind or my way of thinking, and has helped me accept myself as a very complex and whole person instead of just trying to uphold myself to certain standards.
Mhm.
So like having all these changes after, I mean, it even made accepting being neurodivergent a lot easier, and especially being like, well, I have this too. Yeah, I feel like I had something else to say about that. I can't remember.
It's okay. If it comes back to you, feel free to tack it on wherever you remember it.
Thank you.
Is there anything else about your spirituality or mental health you want to mention before I move on to more drag focused topics?
I literally wrote, "Never be afraid to keep exploring who you are, heart."
Yay. That's a good reminder. It's
Never
never too
ending.
late to start transitioning or to realize your neurotype or think about switching religions.
Yeah, right?
I actually I was Christian, and I converted to paganism in Christian seminary. Yeah. Mostly this what do they call it? The straw that broke the horse's back or whatever was studying Christian history and hearing about um St. Patrick and what happened in Ireland and the driving
Mm-hmm.
out of the snakes, quote unquote, which is
Mm-hmm.
just genocide. It was just an attempt at genocide, really. And I was like, I'm not about this, like colonizing in the name of some Christian god. So yeah, I that was a whole adventure. Somehow I managed to still get a master's degree, but it was it's like,
Sounds
okay.
terrifying. Like you're really in it too.
Yeah.
Oof.
So I mean, thankfully it was like the most queer Christian seminary I could find. Like I think there was 2 cishet people in the incoming class of 50. Like it was mostly trans people and queer people,
Okay.
including the professors. It was in Berkeley, California. It was very like leftist, radical people. But yeah, man, that Christian history was brutal. I
Yeah.
was not about that. So anyway,
My
yeah.
dad is he is now like with me and my dad, my partner all live together, and my dad is now more on the Druid path, even though he kind of raised me in the Catholic Church and stuff, and
Mhm,
now and he used to be part of the Knights of Columbus and now is like horrified that he was ever part of it.
mhm.
Um so yeah,
Well,
definitely.
you live and you grow. I actually once a month on my Twitch streams, GenderMeowster on Twitch. I think it's the 3rd Thursday of the month. My mom and I do tarot readings together on stream. So if
Oh,
anyone wants us to read a card for you, stop by on the 3rd Thursday. I think we're live from about 1 to 2:30 Pacific on that 3rd Thursday of the month. And we're inconsistent about getting the VODs on YouTube, so don't count on that to come to the live stream. And there's always events. People can RSVP in the Discord server if you want a reminder. We usually will post it the week that it's happening. So, um, anyways,
that's
yeah,
so
it's
sweet.
it's special. It's special getting to do like pagan practices with your parents,
Yeah.
like especially if you weren't raised
I mean, it's
with those
also,
practices together.
yeah, it's breaking generational curses. Like you don't need to have children to do that. Like I
Yeah,
feel like I'm doing that with some of my elders. Like my
hmm
dad, I make spells for my grampy. He's the one who
nice.
had the grandma who did the poker and
hmm
yeah, all that. So it's cool
I love
to be
that.
doing that.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. Someone told me recently that our generation is the one that's teaching our parents about boundaries
Hmm.
and what those are. Um, I wish I remembered the context for that. I remember that phrase. I don't remember what was happening in my life right then or what else was going on, but that was such a powerful statement that my friend sent me. Um, yeah, mirror me. You love doing spiritual things with your family. I also enjoy that. Your family's really cool. You can tell them I said that if you want. Um, anyways, so gosh, this is so fun. How has drag helped you in your gender journey?
So, I mean, first of all, like the performing of masculinity and like being able to play with gender, that's what drag is all about. I think there's a lot of eggs that start doing drag and that's like their way of realizing they're trans. Um,
Mhm,
I mean, that was one of the places where I was using any and all pronouns and people would just use they, them for me. And that
mhm.
helped me realize like, wow, I really like that. I like that that's people's default for me and not just she or, um, yeah. And like getting to hear different pronouns on the mic too, because I would only use like he, him pronouns in drag at first before I made Prince Zaddy a he, they. Um, so getting to hear that on the mic and being talked about like a masculine person. Whereas, like, for some reason, I have too many interactions where people are they have such strong feelings about my gender, and I don't know why. I'm like, it's my gender. I don't know. They're like, no, but you just have such a pretty face, or you have this feminine energy radiating off of you. And
Oh
I'm like,
God,
wow,
that
I just don't
feminine
need to
energy
hear that.
comment. I've got that before. It's like,
Right.
really?
Right. And I'm just like, well, why do you need to tell me this? So like getting described as a drag king felt like it was different than anything I had experienced before. And also when I tried on my binder for the first time, which I bought a binder for drag, I didn't think too much
Yes.
about it beforehand. I tried it on and I was like, oh,
Oops.
we're having some feelings here.
Egg cracking sounds intensify.
Yes, yes. And I started drag just before COVID started. And so that
Mm,
was like a strange thing too. And I feel like a lot of people took that time of quarantine and to explore their gender, explore different identities for themselves too, which is really cool. And I think my partner has helped me a lot too. We met through drag. We're both drag kings and host a show now, but we were just babies then, and it's been cool to like have our journeys be like in tandem together. But they came out before me and they're on T and like got top surgery before me too. Or well, we both took care of each other, but it's been
it's so great when you have like trans people like taking care of each other after our trans surgeries.
yes,
My wife and
yes.
I do that for each other as well. It's really nice.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
really nice. And to like hold those milestones and memories together. Yeah. So I feel like my partner has helped me too, like both through drag and outside of drag, of like using my pronouns and kind of being like, no, you're trans. And I'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't have to be on HRT or have any surgeries to be trans, turns out.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that care. That's so beautiful.
Me too.
Um, this is only barely related to what we were just saying. It was more a response to the beginning of the things you were saying. I wonder if you've ever considered having Prince Zaddy add they as a pronoun with he and they, just to like do a nod at the Irish heritage.
Maybe, but I also feel like I'd be personally a little scared because the Fae are powerful and
They are.
terrifying. Like there's no way to be like, because there are some good fairies, but like there's no one way to speak for like the whole of the Fae. And so like that like terrifies me a little bit. It's almost like giving them your name a little bit in a way. But I mean, I
Yeah,
guess it would
but
be my drag name.
if you give them a little bit of your name, maybe they won't take the rest of it. It's
Right.
like, this is your offering. I'll just give you a little bit of my name right here as an intentional gift. Please let me keep the rest. Okay, bye.
I also have heard that like gender Fae is like anything but masculine and gender fawn is anything but feminine.
Mm,
I
mhm.
don't know what like if there's pronouns for like fawn. That would be cute.
I definitely know non-binary and trans masculine people who use "they" as a pronoun.
Yeah.
Um, but I hear you, and you're wanting to be respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He is okay for now. We'll see. We'll
I
see.
like it. Leather Jacket Bear says, "Get the fate is still your assigned gender at birth is a brilliant gambit."
I love that.
That's the kind of trickster energy we're here for.
Yeah.
Do you see your dragon druidry as interconnected as well? No.
I do. I've literally done some magic on the stage. There's um this show in Denver that, I mean, it's less regular now, but it's like a ritual and a drag show. So there's
Nice.
times where we're all in community together doing what we love and being who we are. Um, I feel like the Venn diagram of like drag and pagan is like the middle part is taking up most of it, you know?
Yeah, it's almost a circle.
Yeah, almost a circle. And the druids originally too, like you think of like the bards and ovates, but like poetry and song and like telling stories that way and dancing. I even grew up doing a little bit of Irish step dancing, which is like what I imagine is a more colonized version of what Irish dancing used to be.
Mhm.
I want to look into Sean Noss dancing because it's more like free form, like you can move your arms and stuff, and it's more free form, and that's what I would imagine things maybe used to be like or similar. Anyways, yeah, I've done magic on stage, like being able to showcase trans joy and trans art on stage in such a public way is very sacred, I believe. Um, and then I also feel like this connects all of the things, druid, drag, neurodivergence, realizing that there are seasons, like seasons of rest and high energy and in-betweens. Being able to listen to your spirit and body and rest when you need to or set boundaries or
Mhm.
limits. Like in drag, I feel like there's this fear of being irrelevant if you're not getting booked enough and you're not constantly in shows. And it is true that like drag and social media like really like we are just going so fast. And but I feel like that I can't let that stop me from slowing down and listening to myself, because how am I supposed to put this beautiful art out on stage if I'm not well myself?
Yeah.
Um, and then my partner and I run this show called Stage Fluid, which I feel like is magical every time. I can't even describe it. It's an open stage, and it's like drag mainly, but we've had poetry, burlesque, stand-up comedy, live singing. Like we will take whatever people want to put on stage. There's never a theme. It's a free show and it's
It's
18 plus
amazing.
too. Yeah, it's similar to something we had when we were coming up as kings, but the bar it was at closed as soon as
Mm.
COVID hit. So
Mhm.
yeah, and it's just beautiful. Like we really try to prioritize newbies to drag, and getting to see someone debut and get the hype and the love and all the tips from the audience. It just feels so special. Our last one,
I love
we
that.
had to move venues, and now we're at the Mercury Cafe, which is like a very established place in Denver, and it's like a poetry scene. They have like swing dance and blues and all that too,
Nice.
but the having our show there like just fit so perfectly, and there's no backstage, so the whole cast was like hanging out in the audience and getting ready out in the open, which felt really special and like just kind of reminded me what drag is all about, like being in community and sharing art together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there a digital component to that if people wanted to tune in from home or elsewhere?
it's something we've considered since the beginning. I haven't figured out how we would do that and how we would get like people's consent. That's
Mhm.
like I think my biggest concern is the consent piece for like performers and audience, like whoever might be in the shot.
Right.
Because like for some people, drag is like an escape from like their family,
Right.
like some of the like younger folks who might live with their parents and come to our show to like get away from all that.
Yeah.
That's my only concern, but I would love for it to have a digital component. We're actually gonna have like an all ages show at the coffee shop I work at pretty soon too. So it'll be cool to like see how that goes with the youth. And yeah, because there's really not that many all ages spaces out there. There's not a lot of 18 plus or free spaces out there. Most drag shows cost
Yeah.
5, 10, $15,
Yeah. I love that. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. So, is there anything that we missed about Druidry, drag, and neurodivergent that you'd like to make sure that you say in our sort of concluding question section?
I believe so. I feel like I covered a lot. Maybe I'll just say that nice little never be afraid to keep exploring who you are. That little
Yeah,
tidbit.
that's a good one. Can you share an experience with gender euphoria?
Hmm. I feel like so many things just popped into my brain at the same time. Like, I mean, top surgery is like the biggest one, I think, for me. Just being able to be shirtless and be out in the sun, like going on shirtless hikes. Actually,
Yes.
my birthday just passed. I'm a Cancer though. But
Happy
my
birthday.
birthday, thank you.
Events
And
tomorrow.
happy early, Leo.
Thank you.
But yeah, my partner and I rented a pool for a couple hours. It's weird. It was like an
That's so
Airbnb, but
Cancer of
just
you.
I need to
I
be in
love that.
water on my birthday and cry.
That's so good.
So I even did like a little tarot reading like over the edge of the pool too.
Yay.
But I was in like I swam a lot as a kid and I just felt that like childlike joy again and like literally, like swimming like the frog arms, I guess, like and feeling the water in my armpits and on my chest, like just felt amazing, like not having like a top like pinching me or something. That was so freeing.
Yeah, love that. All right. Last question. What would you like to make sure folks know about your perspective on gender and non-binary, trans, and or gender diverse issues?
My perspective,
Yeah. What do you like if you only get to say one thing about being trans, what is the thing you want to make sure people hear from you?
there's oh I mean I'm sure across the world, but in the US, like is what I can speak to. Like there's so much happening constantly, and while it is important to like remain educated and keep up on everything, if you are trans, like remembering to take a step away from the screens and find that euphoria like in your personal life or little glimmers here and there when you can, because I feel like social media especially like shoves and bombards us like with everything in our face all at once, and it's a lot of trauma to take in. So
Mhm.
remembering to take time for yourself, that your transition is for you and not for anybody else.
Yeah.
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 I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Folks, Reanna, also known as Prince Zaddy, is a Denver-based drag king, social worker, barista, artist, and druid. They are a jack of all trades, if you will, a generally very reflective human. And in their personal journey and connecting with the whole, you can find Reanna on Instagram at ReannaHolmey, Reanna Holmey. Here is this week's Clutter query that you, our audience, can answer on social media platforms.
So which pieces did you resonate with, and can you find how all the different facets of your life can be connected to?
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. Folks, next week's guest is going to be Ka Youngni, they them pronouns, and we are discussing gender and illustration. As far as community updates, if you're hearing this live, we have Meowsterversary 2023 happening August 5th through 6th. So that's this weekend. Starts on Saturday, goes through Sunday. We're celebrating 3 years on Twitch and my birthday, and we're doing a fundraiser for Meowster's Clouder and this whole channel and organization as a whole. We're trying to get our annual expenses covered for all the programs that we used to edit the podcast, etc. If you're listening to this and you would still like to donate, go to pally.gg/tip/GenderMeowster, all lowercase, and you can contribute towards that. We've got all sorts of milestone prizes and things. We're going to have a raid train with multiple streamers. It's going to be a great time with a lot of friendly faces and friends of the Clouder. I've been planning this event for a little while now, and I'm so excited that it's finally this week. It's like a big birthday party, and I'm so thrilled. So leave it to a quadruple Leo to throw a big party for their birthday. Anyways, folks, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. Trans rights are human rights. That's right. Genderful would like to thank our guest for being on this podcast. If you'd like to catch us live, join us on Mondays at twitch.tv/GenderMeowster. Show notes will appear in the edited version of the show on Fridays on both YouTube and podcasting platforms.
If you have a question you would like the host to answer, or are gender diverse and would like to request an interview, please send an email to genderfulpodcast@gmail.com or sign up via the website at genderfulpodcast.com.
As a gender diverse community, the Clatter wants to assure our listeners that we are prepared to moderate our spaces. We will get positive and negative feedback on these shows and topics, and we have a moderation team on our channels, socials, and Discord server ready to deal with this.
Please join our Discord server at discord.gg/Meowster to meet the community and get a regular digest of solidarity resources. You can also support us with subscriptions on Patreon, following and reviewing us on your favorite podcasting platform, or engaging with our posts and content on social media at GenderfulPod and at GenderMeowster.
You could take a few moments to also rate the show. We will post any 5-star reviews on our socials, so get creative. Mention a special interest of your own, a project you're working on, or even say hi to your comfort person in your review. What power!
This show is made possible by volunteers, tips, and subscriptions. Shout out to the folks helping us coordinate guests, edit the podcast, moderate the live chat, and post on our socials.
Artist credit for Genderful. Genderful's theme song is called Hope by Free Range Megs, aka Soma. The GenderMeowster logo was designed by That's Barnaby and edited with consent by Transgriffin. Genderful's pre-show is wrangled by JuiceTex. Genderful is edited and mixed by Transgriffin and Alexis Vandam. Genderful's social media is managed by Queer to Help. Genderful is hosted by Atlas O Phoenix and GenderMeowster. Genderful is the intellectual property of GenderMeowster. All rights reserved.
Trans rights are human rights. That's right.